Firstly, I'd like to particularly note and pay tribute to a whole range of people in the community on the Gold Coast who have worked for a number of years to protect a small but nonetheless special piece of land known as Black Swan Lake. This area in Bundall and the Gold Coast, very close, unfortunately for itself, to the Gold Coast Turf Club, is a freshwater lake home to 40 species of wild birds. It was excavated over 30 years ago and has regrowth bushland at the western end. In 2014, the Gold Coast City Council gave permission for it to be filled in for a car park, and the community stopped the trucks at that time, which arrived to start filling it in spite of the presence of nesting swans, and managed to prevent that. And they've been fighting to protect that lake ever since. Despite that, the Gold Coast City Council in 2016 gave the Turf Club control of the lake and gave the Turf Club the right to fill it in. The community has continued to fight since that time, and even once the trucks finally started arriving and started pouring the dirt into that lake, they kept fighting. And it is wonderful to see that the filling in of that lake has stopped, at least for the moment. A number of people on the Gold Coast City Council, including the Mayor, have links to the Gold Coast Turf Club, and the Crime and Corruption Commission in Queensland is investigating a number of things in regards to the Gold Coast City Council, but including some of the issues around the decision-making to allow not just the lake to be filled in, but the granting of that area to the Gold Coast Turf Club. The petition in support of protecting Black Swan Lake on the Gold Coast now has over 31,000 signatures. I visited that area a few weeks ago on a particularly rainy day, and despite the rain was met by a large number of local people. I saw the swans on the lake. I saw the destruction that had already started to be wreaked on that area, and I urge the Gold Coast City Council to reconsider its decision. I gather they're meeting again this Friday. I'm sure the local community will once again be present to ask them to reconsider that. But this is a classic case of local residents having to raise money and launch campaigns because their so-called representatives are more interested in putting the interests of their donors and the corporate sector ahead of the local community and what it wants to see for its own area. The lake is not toxic. It's proved to be an effective way to control pollution from the neighbouring horse stables, according to independent scientific tests. An area like this, a rare piece now in the Gold Coast area, at least in the built-up area, of a natural environment that's home to so many bird life and other local wildlife, including migratory birds, for that to be filled in for a car park is extraordinary. And for the Gold Coast Turf Club to be required to pay the City Council just $1 a year under a licence deal to use that area once it is filled in is a travesty, to put it politely. As a property analyst told the Gold Coast Bulletin, if that area is worth a fortune. To say it's worth between $6 million to $12 million is extremely conservative. It's an excellent area to develop. To quote directly from the Gold Coast Bulletin, $1 a year to the Gold Coast Turf Club. And again, I say, an excellent example of a local community not giving up in the face of such